Welcome to this morning's Dhamma talk. So usually I have a talk title, and I thought today I'd do something a little bit different. Maybe get more tuned into those of you who are sitting here and have questions. So give me, I would just ask randomly, give me 3 different topics, and I'll pick one of those that shows up for me in a strong way, and I will talk about it for a little while, maybe have some questions. Just say, have something?
Like, it's not crisp, but
One or two words. Can't do that. Someone's waving your hand over here, so you better hurry. Can't you say what you just were saying, just a couple of words?
student teacher.
Huh?
Student teacher.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
Protest.
That's not so good. I'll see what I can do with it, but let me have one more.
Believing your feelings.
Yeah, I'll do that one. That's actually come up for me a few times, but I talk about that so much. Because I always say, don't believe your feelings, and then I follow it up with, you can't help it. I believe my feelings. I'm having feelings all day long that feel like they're true. And are they? They are true as feelings. But the issue that's so difficult, it's going to take your whole life for you to understand deeply what it is. It's not to get rid of the feeling, not to find out what caused the feeling. It's a waste of time to find out what caused it. I'm not saying that if you hit your finger or thumb with a hammer or something, that you can kind of see what caused that if you weren't paying attention. So it's very simple. But to do anything with what shows up when it's like an emotional situation where you're believing something, to do anything other than just feel that tends to rotate away from something that may show up as a cause, but not as one that you're chasing down. The actual causation where that might have an off switch, it can be extremely hidden in dependent origination in such a way that you cannot find that. But if you spend a lot of time receiving, then there is a possibility that you can make some kind of an adjustment. No guarantee. No guarantee at all. So, but believing, you have emotions, someone says something, does something, something happens in your life, something happens in your job situation, or any number of things. And we immediately, maybe not every time, sometimes we might be such a strong feeling that we can't even budge. We can't even cry, or we can't do whatever, or even laugh. We cannot do it. It's just so intense. So this is why awareness practice is so important. Whether you think of yourself as a Buddhist, or just a student of Buddhism, or someone who meditates, or I could go on and on, because there's all variations of this. There are people who are fully ordained at wearing robes that do not have as strong a commitment to this path as some people who have no robes at all. They just meditate, they practice, and they're very interested in training their mind. I can't tell you who those people are, and I wouldn't. I'm not going to pick that out, because a person, when I define something that way, I'm saying you have to have respect for each person's path. Not everybody should be doing this. And there's some people that definitely should be. They need as much glue, as much support as they can get. But I'm not here to say, well, I don't think I've ever said to anyone, you need to take vows. Have I ever said that to any monk here? Did I ever say that to you?
Say what?
Ever say that you should receive jukai, or you should be a monk, or
Not like that.
did I say you really ought to consider it?
It's probably a good idea,
I said it's probably a good idea. Huh.
I think.
I'd like
But
to
I
know
can't
how long ago that was.
I can't remember.
Well, but I even ask you a question if you can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good one. I like that response. So the 3 that I often say, which is what Shantian is referring to, I think, is don't believe, don't disbelieve, and don't ignore. Those are the 3 poisons: passion, aggression, and ignorance. I've got it kind of out of order there, but it's, if you push on it, disbelieve it, that's a kind of aggression. And if you believe it, which is an aspect of compassion, or not compassion, but passion, or pulling or grasping or believing it, grasping it, coveting that, thinking that is the truth. You don't need to have any other understanding other than just this, and this conceptually probably displayed is true. This actually happened, and so on. And the thing that makes it so difficult is there's probably some area there conceptually, relatively, in the storybook that sounds like this happened, and he said, she said, they did. So it ties us up in a knot of stories. This is why it is so important to sit still, practice sitting meditation, and watch the stories, observe the stories. And if you can, don't grasp them, believe, don't reject them, disbelieve, and don't ignore or shut down. And of course, as I have elaborated on many times you probably could in your own experience, you can see where you sometimes, when you're meditating, you get caught up in a story, and you actually think about it, believe that, elaborate on it, become practically a director of the whole scene. You're actually not, may even be 3 or 4 of the characters or actors in that situation. Very convincing. Very, very convincing. And so it seems that what is necessary for each person, and it's going to show up differently, there's no standard for this, is the way in which, when you have emotions about something, you want to do something about it. You have emotions, you want to stop them, aggression, or the other way of the 3 poisons work is you may want to distract yourself from it. Ignorance, go to think about something else, or do something else, or start up some kind of activity, because the feeling that you're having is so uncomfortable. So you distract yourself from it. And this is why awareness practice is so important. There is to allow something to come up in the space of awareness, and watch the way you're starting to believe or grasp onto something. If I say, coming back to Shanjian's question or topic, it's about observing that. It takes quite a bit of time to watch that, because the ego mind jumps to the conclusion that we have to stop that. You can't really stop those feelings. You can't. We have no. This for a more elaborate, a more pointed teaching would be, you can't really control anything. It just looks like it. It's an incredible illusion, the illusion of control, based on picking this up and putting it down. We have so many things that are in the physical realm, where the illusion of past and future, time and space, over here, over there, are so intense. Just believe that we're over here, and I'm this person sitting up here. You are those people sitting out there. This is unreal. This is not true. It's relatively true, and most of the world is running on that. And that's what we're endeavoring to address, because if that worked, we wouldn't have this suffering. We wouldn't have all this warfare and all this passion, aggression, and ignorance, for people who look like they love each other, care about each other, just at some point, because of hidden causes. Suddenly they're at war, and even they're not sure. They might even stop in the middle. What are we fighting for? What are we fighting for? Have you ever done that in an argument with someone? What are we doing? What are we doing? And what that is about, if I may say so, you're the one who has to see this yourself. But if I may say so, it's the hidden areas, because we bite down on things that we can see and watch them move. We bite down on, or we reject things that we can see, because it's closer. Even though it's in the realm of consciousness, it's closer to what it's like in the physical world, where we actually can move something aside. But you can't take your aggression or your belief in something that's got you by the throat, conceptually. Maybe you just can't remove that. Well, I just won't feel that way, even though some forms of psychology do work with it in a more manipulative way, wouldn't you say? So, you being a psychologist,
Another couple over there too.
how many? Well, okay, Robert, what do you say?
Some do.
Okay, some do.
Some aspects do, definitely.
So the only thing I'm not a psychologist, and maybe work with it a little bit that way. What I emphasize is insofar as you can get to know yourself. In other words, be aware of whatever's arising and falling away and rising. And it's so tempting to believe or disbelieve. Each of us have our own personal, meant to be descriptive, but like a soap opera in our mind about our life, our mother, our father, our children, our neighbors, stories that come and go and come and go, and we use those to reify, support, and actually give some sustenance to or nurture that part of the consciousness that is we call ego, that operates with some kind of maybe low level, some kind of paranoia. So it's about observing that we're believing. You have to start. You won't be able to see it in its raw state unless you first try to stop it. It seems just a way of talking. So don't believe your thoughts. Well, you can see that you can't really stop that. And that is the beginning of witnessing the very raw material of dependent origination when it starts to get away from the personhood who does believe. So then you're beginning to look at it as consciousness. You're beginning to see that you really don't have a say-so about that, like you do about mowing the lawn or looking at the clock or something. It's very, very literally right in the middle of the relative truth. That is the illusion. Yes, sir.
Shanji, I'm looking at the interaction and distinction between believing your thoughts and believing your emotions. And the connection between those things.
So it's a pretty strong area. If you say it that way, it looks very differentiated. Like you have your thoughts, you have your emotions, but they have a kind of overlap. And in order to have an overlap, you have to have two different things. And they're because it's in consciousness, you really can't. This is something that Trungpa Rinpoche was asked. What is the difference between thoughts and emotions? And I thought it was kind of a cop out. I've said this before. And when he said, "Oh, emotions are high-speed thoughts." So what does that say to me? That he didn't know exactly how to get concepts to be able to talk about what this is. Nor do I. But I can say that for each person, it's going to be a little different. Some people are extremely ruled. My experience of not only talking to myself for many, many years, decades, but talking to others since I first started doing this as a meditation instructor early on in 1978, to see that some people are extremely tied up in their thought patterns, their opinions, their judgments, and other people have a little bit of that going on, but a lot of the other, just to use the extreme, are extremely emotional and are dealing with intense passion, which there's some room in there for concepts, but not a lot. Just they can hook up their vocal cords, but a lot of it doesn't come out, doesn't make a lot of sense. And then there are other people, and I'm just saying making a few comments. There's an innumerable nuances between all of these, but some people are just a mixture of that, and sometimes they're not sure whether they're thinking or feeling. Does that help a little bit? If you have further questions that are coming out of your own personal experience of training your own mind, this will help us all using this dialogue, if you want to call it that, to go deeper into that. It's a very important area. It's very difficult for me to generate something completely on my own. I don't do hardly anything on my own. Yes.
Shanji, I'm dying. It seems like it's a little bit easier to see how thoughts aren't as real as emotions, and how the thoughts kind of ride along with the emotions in a way. So guess I'm seeing just a bit of space around both of them, but I guess I'm just trying to see how the interplay between them works.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and this is my response to you, I would say this to you in private or here. It's not a private thing, but I would say, or talking to in an interview, I would say that you're looking at it. But what happens is what you're looking at doesn't make any sense because it's showing up as polarized. So you're trying to sort, you're trying to do this, and possibly your style, the kind of work you're in, being an attorney and so on, may cause you to go more in that direction of trying to solve something by calculating, figuring it out, or categorizing it, or slipping it this way or that way. And that is part of the smokescreen of ego. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying that your dynamic is, I'm already saying, as your teacher, I'm saying, just continue to do what you're doing. Add nothing to it, take nothing away from it. Don't modify anything like that. Do not modify anything in that area at all, other than just observe, because you're looking at the differentiation and desire that is caught between those two concepts that we talk when we talk about consciousness as being conceptual or being emotional. Yes.
Yeah, that's helpful, very helpful. There's a part of me that finds it refreshing to be looking at that. And I kind of want to look at it more. So I don't.
Refreshing is good. It won't last. Pretty soon it just turns completely sour. Have you noticed? Yes.
Not this, but with other things.
Well, with this,
I haven't noticed that yet.
huh?
I haven't noticed.
Sit more. So I'm not even asking you how much you sit, but I'm saying what you're doing, as I understand it. And you've been meditating for quite a number of years. I'm saying just continue to do more of that. It seems to take more of it. But the ego will come in and say, well, when we need to figure that, well, we need to calculate. And I'm not saying I'm not accusing you, but I'm saying we try to strategize the thing rather than just have the just out and out full force of direct perception, which can't be accompanied by emotions or thoughts. They're not allowed, not like they're not allowed in there, but there's no room for that in consciousness because it just fills up consciousness and becomes the object. It becomes, in Trungpa's, remember Jay's words, it would be materialism. We have to cut through spiritual materialism. How do we do that? Look right down the center of it. There's nothing to cut. There's nothing to divide. It's not even a cutting, but we have to talk about it somehow. So that's the way he chose to do that. It's to ego. Ego starts to feel starved in that area because it's not getting the results. It's like working 24/7 as an attorney, not getting paid. How's that feel? Yeah. I mean, it's a poor metaphor, but it's like that. It's like you're doing something so hard, you're looking at something and you're not getting anything from it. But that's consciousness because you're slowly changing your allegiance over from, the stick shift of passion, aggression, ignorance. That kind of structural thing of feelings and emotions and thinking and evaluating and analysis over to just, there's no controls anymore. There's just this, like you're in a vehicle, you have no idea who's driving it. You don't even know which seat is the driver's seat. Very difficult. The only way I can get to it is to use metaphors like that show that we have less and less reference point. And you can do it. My encouragement to you and to anyone is to train your mind, see clearly, go right into the darkness that it is your mind. More. Yes.
Wonderbang, is it ego or our identity that links the thoughts and the emotions?
Again,
Is it our identity or ego that links the thoughts and emotions?
I'd say to answer the question, yes, but I was trying to see if there's a way I could respond that would make it less like a yes, and more like give you some kind of understanding that it's not exactly a link. They're actually not separate, but they can be experienced separately, or we feel like we're experiencing an emotion and we don't feel like there's much thought going on. Or we may feel like we're being very clear conceptually in the emotional areas off to one side, when that may not be the case. So that's why it's important to emphasize the receiving part of the thing. The receiving, when I say the thing, I'm saying whatever is happening in your living room or your interaction with another person or your memories about something someone said 10 minutes ago. This is the consciousness of that, because it wants so much to have a result. It wants so much to know whether it's this or this. The either or mentality is highly charged and powerful in that area more.
Wonderbang, so I guess my question is it helpful when you're feeling a strong emotion to look at the emotionator?
The idea who's feeling this, or I don't teach that as a direct go to. But I also would say if that shows up, if the identity or as the Ramana Maharshi's the actual direct teaching was Atma Vichara or self. Who's feeling this? Who is it? Who is it? I would say that shows up situationally, then it's good. Like who is this? Then that seems to be better than having a practice where you're definitely going to that. That's why I don't teach Tonglen. One of the reasons I don't teach it because to go directly in there just makes it's like you might as well be baking biscuits all day. Nothing wrong with biscuits. But it's so relative that it doesn't get close to, it's so relative that it doesn't get close to the spontaneity that would show up as if you're going through something and you just start to look for an identity and don't see anything.
Wonderful. In regards to emotions, is it helpful to look at the bodily response? It's like a
Yes.
thought would not necessarily have a bodily or physical reaction to a thought so much as an emotion. Is that true?
I don't know. Oh, what do you think?
For me, I really associate my emotions with a physical response.
Other people feel this way. Someone. It gets some big grins out there. Nope, nobody's nodding yes. People are grinning and going. No, they're not. Yes, they are. No. Yes. So, yes. Is that your question?
We're going, I'm looking at that. Split between like concepts and emotions, and I'm wondering at the root of concepts, is there anger?
So the three poisons, that's the ones that's tied into even though you would think it would be emotion, but conceptual area is very much about anger. Yeah. Yes,
Didn't you then?
you first, Natsumi next. Go ahead.
Earlier you said it's a waste of time to figure out what's causing an emotion or a feeling. Does that teaching apply equally to the relative mundane situations?
Well, I mean, all I'm saying is if you have a habituation where you're constantly looking for causes and you're because you want to blame, not necessarily a person, but a situation. It's not that it's not relatively true, but everybody does that all the time. You feel this, why is that happening? Feel this, why? It's always why because. And all I'm offering there is to say you could cut into that a little bit and try to look at the emotion itself. The way I've talked about this in the past, instead of go to why every single time and get some kind of a culprit, whether it be the situation or a person or your own feelings or something like that, you go to the feeling itself. So say why rather than say why, say what is this? Feeling arises rather than what's causing it? Why am I feeling this way? Which we all do. I do it. Probably have done it this morning already. I'm not going into detail about that, but I'm saying you could actually say what is and go and slide a little back a little bit. You could call it retreat or move back away from that into the subjectivity of it, the powerful emotion that is being felt that you're kind of not too concerned with what the cause of that emotion was. You want to see what is the emotion, because that gets close to the fundamental misunderstanding, which is that there is duality, or that there are separate beings. This illusion of a separate being here and a separate being here, all it's just intense. And when you say there's no self and there's no other, you're not going to convince me. The way it looks to me like there's lots of separation everywhere. But if you see it, what it is fundamentally, the very separation itself is non-dual. You have to see it yourself. It can't be, I can't say, here's what I've been looking at here, take some. I have to say, you see it. You sit still and you look at this yourself so that you can realize it right here not in your eyes, not in your ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, but in your consciousness.
Aren't you bowing? It seems easier to work with that on the cushion where things are just more murky in general anyway. But in,
All right. On the cushion, they're more murky in general anyway than in your everyday life.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing.
So in a,
You saw what happened there?
maybe,
Okay, that's good enough. Go ahead.
in a more relative situation, let's say I have a headache because I drank alcohol or something like that, where it seems like there's an obvious causal situation.
Yes,
Because that's so obvious or tempting, is that an area where we can use this teaching to look at that more closely?
it's possible. Basically, what I'm referring to here is emotional or reactions against this, for and against, for and against. So I'm endeavoring to, I'm encouraging you or any of us, myself included, to just look at the emotions that come and go with less leaving the emotion for who caused it, even though there is probably causation in there. Maybe there's dozens of them, but to try to get close to the fundamental emotion itself, because that's the area that there's a cover up of the nature of consciousness by assuming there's someone who has that feeling. And so that's what needs to be looked at, because there isn't anyone having the feeling. Everything that's happening to you is dependent. There isn't. It's not something you believe in. It's a conceptual description that's been coming to us since the time of the Buddha, and there are whole books written on it. Some of them may be helpful, some of them just more circles and more heavy duty concepts. So coming back to what you're asking about, I would just say, you do that. The way you ask the question tells me you already are looking at what you need to. Your question is about the very mundane cause and effect situation. And you already have a glimpse or an idea, maybe more than a glimpse, of how that applies to that area of concepts, emotions, feelings, cause and effect that are happening in consciousness. So it's always about awareness. It's not about getting it. That's a very seductive area to try to get what's happening, to understand it. And of course, relative truth is going to give you that. Why is there a noise? Because this moved through the air and I picked it up and dropped it. Very simple cause and effect. That's what's running most of the world. It doesn't take into consideration the three marks of existence, which are impermanence. Nothing lasts. I don't care how beautiful, how shiny, how tall, how incredible. It's coming down. It's coming apart. If it shows up, it's going away. Same thing with emotions and thoughts and so on. And everything is in a state of distress. If you ever want to understand, if you get lost in your life with anything, please return to the first noble truth. Life is suffering. This is not nihilism. It's not nihilism is actually picking and choosing between, what's that other one, happyism, something like that. Not negativity and eternalism, nihilism. I don't know. I can't even explain those things. But return to that, not as some kind of a destination, but someone to look really at what is the distress, what is the difficulty, the uncomfortable quality of being a living being in consciousness. More.
Thank you.
Nancy.
Natsumi bowing. When numbness or shutting down shows up in the moment, and maybe later the memory of that sort of opens the floodgates of more intense
Yes.
emotions. What is happening during that numbness and shutting down?
Really, you're saying it's just something is getting really intense, and the way you're describing it, you are able to just shut that off or not feel that or pretend or act as if that's not actually happening, or it can't get too close to you. It's basically just ego. But everybody's operating out of ego in some way or another, including this person. This is not gotten rid of my ego, and of course, you probably it's pretty obvious I haven't. I'm just saying it's always about awareness, and then the degree to which that shutting down or that numbness starts to back off will be about the awareness and about dependent origination. It would not be a success story of you getting rid of numbness or no longer ignoring anything kind of thing. That's materialism. That's trying to change something into something better, more buying into polarity. So what I would say is just be aware. So this is what the sitting practice of meditation is about. I know you practice. And then when that happens in the interaction, maybe with someone where you just begin to be shut down or numbed, maybe not talking, you're not exactly saying that. You can have that kind of a feeling and still be talking away quite a bit. You should probably know. So, you know that?
Guilty.
So, not an accusation, of course, but people are able to function in so many different ways. No two people like anywhere. So, but the awareness part is what I would emphasize there, rather than trying to ever get rid of that. It's almost like this big capital A here, which is what? Awareness. It's almost like you're not. It's not exactly like it's like you don't care whether you don't care how you feel. You don't care if you feel numb. You just are appreciative of how aware you can be of everything. This is how you eventually see the suffering in the world. Even though someone is accusing you, blaming you for how they feel, you're able to receive it. Is that easy? No. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you pop on one. I mean, not physically, but anyway. You might scold them, chew them out, so to speak. That's the common word. Isn't that the word that commonly used? And you just give them a piece of your mind, that kind of thing. So, but even that area, is an area we have to be aware of. I'm not giving anybody like permission, not that you need it, to be mean to someone else. There are times it has to be your consciousness. There are times when you're going to need to, you need it. A person doesn't need anything. There is no person. But consciousness may need to rotate in such a way that there's a bunch of freeze up happens in that area. Just be aware of that. This is called compassion. It has to start here. Can't start out. Being compassionate for others is wonderful. There are a lot of people doing that. People try to practice on others, and they should. But if you want to put others before yourself, start with this one. Stop ignoring this one. This is really hard to do. More?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry.
Sean, what are the aspects or components of like the belief part of believing in emotions? How does belief show up?
Take a little break for
Okay.
I think the main aspect of that is when something shows up, whatever it may be, and we have an opinion or an idea or a description of it, or a blaming, or all the other qualities that could be around there, that we could talk about those if you want to. But when we just stop looking at it, we know that's true. You know, fire's hot. It's that kind of a conclusion. Fire's hot. So that's wind moves, those kind of things. But we take something that really doesn't have that kind of a structure to it, and it's kind of not up for grabs so much, but it's up for interpretation, or it depends on the so-called objectivity there. This is true, you believe it, is actually has a lot more subjectivity, using the other part of the illusion called subjectivity, or self and other. So that area just needs to be, and this is why sitting practice of meditation, awareness practice is so powerful, because it doesn't give you a kind of result. It starts to break down the very, what's been called walls of the mind that protect the ego. So when we begin to go into this and look closely closely at it, instead of starting to feel like we're making progress, we can feel like we're getting worse, because we're starting to see the things we've been covering up with belief. Follow me about that? And sometimes it's like there's little pieces of it that were patchworks of belief, that keep us. And that starts to come apart through the sitting practice of meditation. It's like looking at the wall and just occasionally you're sitting, maybe you've been sitting there for a couple of hours and then you just realize you're just looking, you don't even have this thought, but the experience just before you have the thought of I'm just looking at a wall, the experience that you have that might bring about that kind of thought without the thought, it's just this. And it's so blatantly obvious and direct that the ego gets worried about that, and it will come up with boredom. It'll come up with, I have something else to do. It'll come up. It'll find something else on just do something very, very simple and direct, like sitting still and looking at the wall or hearing the noise of the person moving a little bit next to you or outside the building or something. We can go further if you have a more direct question.
I mean, I don't know if I can get it, but it feel like clamping down or like a believing in the thought or the emotion.
Yes,
And then just watching that kind of thing happen.
Yes.
And and I don't know where else to go.
okay, that's good enough. So if you're, let me try to say this, and it's not exactly like this, but it's just my little storybook version of it. You know, probably, I don't know, I'm not gonna give you any more of a preamble, but it's like if you watch the clamping down, that's enough. You don't have to get rid of it. You don't have to, when I say don't believe it, I'm not saying disbelieve it. I'm not saying get rid of the belief. I'm saying just don't believe. That causes you, ideally, would say to watch the way you believe in something. So just look at the clamp. And that does not feel comfortable. So you just look at it rather than try to sort it out or figure it out or somehow stop believing it or see how what you're believing in is fundamentally not true. That's all intellectual, conceptual stuff, rotations around that. Go ahead, sir.
You often say, don't believe what I'm saying, but consider it.
Yes.
Does that consideration involve trying to be aware of the relative and ultimate nature of it simultaneously?
It's that. It's also just out now, just thinking I'm full of it. I'm just saying, don't leave the room. I mean, I don't care. It doesn't matter what you think of me. My intention, I know what my intention is. You can knock me off. You can knock me off this, obviously, but you can't knock me away from my intention. You can't. There's just no way. There's no. I don't know how else to say it than that, because if I go into any kind of description, it sounds like I'm fluffing myself up somehow, and there's no one here to fluff up. So I'm saying, what happens if someone starts to see, as we've seen in our most recent history, if you start to believe your thoughts about this, then you miss the whole point of the vow that you've already received, the vow to be with all things. Simply put, it's also save all beings, but the simplest way to understand is whatever shows up, receive it. Whatever shows up, receive it. And, you know, unless you're really unlucky, you won't have a teaching person that's going to chop your head off. And the only way a person's going to realize the truth is if I murder them. Unlikely for that to happen, but it can feel very painful. I'm getting into somewhat of what Shoto was trying to get to with his question, but couldn't come up with it as a teacher-student relationship. So completely individual and so difficult. Can you say more? That's a good area.
I'm trying to use the example of you describing yourself and apply that to the thought and emotion experience, because it seems like very often the ultimate and relative are kind of they're going to seesaw. Like something could be relatively true but ultimately not true, or ultimately true but relatively not true. So I'm wondering if, when you say don't believe it but consider it, if I were to apply that instead of to you and what you're saying, but to just an emotion that's showing up, does that, like, what does it mean to consider it as opposed to believing, and how does the two truths play in that consideration?
So simply as I can say it, and I'm probably just not very poetic in this area, but just feel the emotion. Whatever you're feeling, it comes with its own calling card, with its own credential. If you're feeling the emotion, you need to feel that emotion. When I say you need to, of course you don't need to, but it's there in you. And so that's what I'm saying by consider it. So to take the emotion and then run away from it into some kind of conceptual idea about the emotion or who caused the emotion. That's why the whole cause and effect thing can be quite seductive to, go ahead.
About recently I asked you about the Enlightenment Ward and the idea of getting out of the way of the truck coming at you. So in that example, it seems like you could, or in the hypothetical example of one who sees what this is, would see that the truck is ultimately unreal, but also, relatively speaking, get out of the way. So is that
That's it.
the dance?
That's it. It's just, so the relative and absolute are not two separate things. But until you see it, you'll fight. You'll hurt yourself. You hurt others. Because you think there's a right and a wrong, and there isn't one. It's terribly painful. But it's not about agreeing with this. It's not about voting. It's not about being in the right political party. As I sit up here, I'm not much on giving my own personal testimonial, but I had no idea what this is or who I am. And if there was much of an ego operating here, I would run out of here. Because I have no proof of anything. I don't need one. Because my proof is this. My proof is the emotions that come at me are intensely painful and negative. Sometimes they're very positive, sometimes neutral. They just come and they go, and they use this consciousness however they want to. And they've been doing that for many years. But I don't know how, I mean, it's not a credential. It's just that's how it feels. I'm encouraging you to feel how you feel. I'm encouraging you to get to know yourself and stop trying to fix yourself or change yourself into some. You're not going to be able to help anybody if you cover up your own crap and become an artificially good person who helps others. You don't need that identity. Well,
Last question, bowing. Normally, when I think of consideration, it's conceptual, like consider the alternatives or consider the implications. That's a conceptual thing. But in this context of don't believe the emotions, but consider them, would that be a non-conceptual consideration of just experiencing the emotions and just being aware? Without
I'd say, well, you're very conceptual. So I would just say, however you do it, someone else there, they might not have any idea how all I'm saying is, simply put, is consider it. And so that may be an emotional dynamic for you. It may be conceptual, maybe a little of each. Just don't shut it out. That's like, I don't know, doesn't mean you reach over and take the salt shaker and step it up like that. So you can really have a powerful experience, but you could at least not knock it off the table. You could look at it. So it's, I don't know, there's only so many images that are going to work there. You almost have to come up with your own image. So I would say, like I would say to anyone who's in the room, who's listening right now, don't leave the room. Maybe that's not this room, but don't leave the consciousness that is showing up for you. Don't leave it. Don't cover up your mind. You're only alive for a certain length of time. Find out who you are. Don't get your identity from me, from anybody. All I'm encouraging you to do is look here in yourself. I'm not encouraging you to do anything particularly. Train your mind. Yes, sir.
Yokabani, a question from James in Pennsylvania. What mindset does a Buddhist need towards people that want to go to their personal religion's God instead of the three jewels?
Just be respectful to everyone. People that are more of a theistic bent or they should be respected. You can't just be somebody else. Not everybody has to hear the word of the Buddha. I mean, we don't have to promote anything. That's why Buddhism isn't particularly promoted, but it's a fairly large group of people that are studying something that was taught 2,500 years ago. In lots of different ways. So I don't think we have to have any mindset there. We could listen to what they have to say. Yes.
Yokabani, he has a second question around that. How do I explain the limits of them for achieving enlightenment to them and myself?
Don't explain anything. I don't know what your situation is if somebody is asking you a question. What are the limits of enlightenment? Someone who is not a Buddhist is asking you that. There's quite a number of books out there. It says, how interested are you? So I have a pamphlet, I have a book, and I have several volumes. So if you could, I mean, it's very situational. I'm not promoting what I say, but you could refer them to, there are all kinds of Dharma talks. To get people into it. Some of them are very, might be closer to that person's style. Or that person's way of understanding, if you want to go there. Maybe I'm not understanding the question, so maybe my answer won't work there. Any other questions? Yes. I'll come back to you. Yes.
Bowing. I'm trying to look at how Trungpa Rinpoche said that the emotions and thoughts are more or less the same thing.
Kind of.
Do they both have an ability to obscure perception?
Yeah. Perception is not, perception doesn't perceive anything, or doesn't produce anything. It's just perception. You're just perceiving it. You might have thoughts about it, you might not, but you can actually perceive, if we're all sitting here and you see a cardinal flash by the window out there, there's not much thought about it. It might be a very slight thought, maybe a little bit of emotion about it. Depends on if you're a birder or not. So I'm not sure where you're going with it.
Sort of bowing, like with that idea of believing the thoughts or believing the emotion, is there some quality of belief in the emotion or the thought itself? Bowing.
It's difficult to say specifically because I think it's so variable. You can't even find out what a thought is, let alone an emotion. You can't. They have no structure. There's nothing there. You can't find them. You can't prove that you're even feeling anything. But now people can hook up wires to you and everything. Oh, you're having emotions, and they'll even put things. Well, let's see. Here's where your memories were when you were 3 years old. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that. It doesn't mean anything that's particularly significant. Not that someone couldn't use that in an area of kind of work with someone's health where they could maybe be helpful in a relative way. I'm not trying to take away that, but I'm saying from the point of view of studying consciousness, what they were doing with Dalai Lama's monks years ago, I think he got quite a few chuckles out of that. The scientists all looking at his monks and what they were experiencing because they've been meditating for 50 years.
It's a little bit of a tangent, but you brought up the idea of how we can't prove we're even having an emotion, and you talked about like when someone goes on a rampage, that's about proving how bad they feel. What does that need to prove how we feel?
It's just the simple, response, of course, is ego, or that part of the consciousness that thinks there is somebody aligned with this particular body. The 5 skandhas, this is why this teaching is there: form, feeling, perception, concept, thought process, consciousness, the 6 sense fields, and their objects all impinging just in the same instant, all at once. There's all of your feelings in your body, and there's a sense of gravity of being here and being present. You all feel that. You feel quite a bit of that when you sit down and meditate. There's quite a bit of body. Some people can just sit still and not move much, and other people cannot sit still at all. Just different ways the body-mind complex works with each person. Well, yes, sir.
John Bowing, seems like riding along with every thought, feeling, and maybe even perception is belief is like attached or just like somehow just riding it, everything's coattails. And I'm wondering, I don't know what my question is there, but it just feels like belief is kind of everywhere.
That's awareness. You don't have to do anything with it. I mean, even though you have a little bit of a conclusion, it's like belief is everywhere. But it's that kind of like, yeah. So you can't find a location. I mean, you can't, but that's not a failure. from the, I wouldn't even call it a success either, but it's about consciousness, and it gets more and more there's more and more dispersion goes on from the point of view of ego. And it's not comfortable for ego to watch that happen. It wants to, sometimes it'll go in and find a particular teaching and start to cling to certain teachings that are right, and all the other teachings are vague or not. Follow me a little bit more? Yes, sir. Robert.
As I observe my emotions, there seems to be a dispassionate quality that arises within my awareness of it. Is there anything that comes out of that? Is there anything that arises out of that?
Probably just more of the same. Each person's style is different in the way you describe it, and knowing you a little bit, we don't know each other real well, but knowing you for a while. And I would just say it's a matter of continuing to look at it. The most important thing that I can say to you personally as feedback is sit still, eyes open, look at the wall, do a lot of it, a lot of what? Receiving, because you're have a very strong conceptual structure, the way your thinking process, which is very valuable for the kind of work you do, of course, as a therapist, but also it can create kind of a matrix or a network that keeps you personally from seeing deeper, having a deeper understanding of the nature of consciousness in a subjective way. Go ahead.
Robert Bowing. The dispassionate quality oftentimes leads to a sense of disappointment that points to a belief system that wasn't mine to begin with.
Mm-hmm. What do you do about that? Just look at it. You don't have to get rid of it. Just be aware of it. It's like you walk through down a road and you walk past a fence. You just notice the fence. You're not stopped by anything. You keep right on walking down the road. Your path in this life is completely open. You don't have to walk up against that fence. Unless it's the wall, then it's a different kind of fence. Spend some time looking at something where nothing is happening at all, so you can watch the movement of the mind. More?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. Yes, sir.
So Bowing, is this a kind of belief? Like,
Yes. Everything's a belief. Everything. If you saw what this, if you see what this is, as you've heard me say, and other teachings have said way before we all got here, is if you see what this is, you won't see anything. You won't see any things. You'll just see consciousness. You'll see this is an illusion. So it's not that the thing isn't separate from this, isn't separate from the clock, of course. I even tried to work on what's his name? What's the little tiny person that runs around here with a big smile on his face? Come on, you know what I mean. Isn't he your son? What's his name?
Xiao
Xiao. What's that mean?
smiling.
Smiling Phoenix. Yes. So I had a big talk with him this morning. A really long talk. It was about 30 seconds. He came in and we had a discussion about the nature of his glasses. Were you there? What transpired there?
Meeting him where he was at. I mean,
Where was he?
he was wanting to tell you about what he had just experienced with Mom.
Yeah. And what about the glasses? You don't remember any of that? Of course, you could not see the puzzled look on his face when I started saying that the glasses were changing the name of the glasses from glasses to what did I call the glasses?
Dog.
Dog. This is a dog. And he just had this perplexed look, but he's only 2, so. But we do the same thing. We're living in the same kind of space ourselves, where as soon as someone changes something out, this will happen if you read poetry. Spend some time, just pick out any book. I wouldn't say every poem does this, but quite often this attachment to concepts. We can see how we're actually using the concepts to keep ourselves from looking deeper into, just like what Robert is asking about. We're using the concepts to protect ourselves. Robert wouldn't be here, I don't think, if there weren't some kind of questions about what that whole dynamic is. about that, what that is, how to work with that in a deeper way. Same way with the questions of Shanjian. It's about how do we look deeper into what is belief? What is that? What is, and seeing that um, uh, smiling phoenix, is that what I mean?
Sure, I think it's Laughing Phoenix. I mix up.
Yeah, it wouldn't be smiling.
Shoho.
Yeah, it's Shoho. It's laughing phoenix. He does laugh. Shoho smiles, but frowns too. But so anyway, just looking at the way, especially when someone's very young, looking at where they're slowly starting to gather together conceptual ideas so that they can create a matrix of self and other. So because they already see the self and other, and each child, we have several of them in our community, when they're very young, it's just fascinating to see that, and especially have known them since they were born, to see. I missed all this with my children. I was too busy, all tied up in my own subjectivity, but I'm able to see it in the young people that are here in this community. Was there a final question in any direction?
Is there anyone on Zoom?
Anyone on Zoom?
Heavy bowing. Heavy bowing. Are feelings a mental phenomenon? Bowing.
So mental in the sense that consciousness is everywhere. Consciousness is in your fingertips. You can feel. Consciousness is in your eardrums. You can hear. Consciousness is in your mind. If I say any word for you would come up completely different. They say from would trigger things in your mind that maybe that would not happen with other people. So, but if you say mental phenomenon, I would say it's a phenomenon in consciousness that we have concepts for, that we try to deconstruct to get a better understanding of what's happening. Further,
Heavy bowing.
yes, sir.
In comparison with physical pain, so feel bodily pain. I was wondering what feels the feelings or emotions.
Same thing. Body and mind are not two separate things. And sometimes that's, I think Ondo was saying a little bit about, if she has intense feelings, she starts to feel that in her body. Were you saying something like that? So it just might not, the whole hookup might be different with each person. Some people are, anything happens in their mind stream, they start to immediately feel bodily situation. I'm going through a very personal thing right now with neuropathy, having been diabetic for so many years. My neuropathy is like, it's kind of like imaginary pain. It's still painful, but it's not, there's nothing actually activating it. It's just that my skin feels sunburn all the time, all over the place. So not particularly comfortable. But I've noticed that if you can make of this what you wish, but if someone talks about sticking me with needles or something like that, all of my skin starts to act as if it's being stuck with a needle. That, and you could say, well, Sokuzan, just don't feel like that. There's no real needles there. And I thought, thank you. Yeah, I'll just back that right off. So it's this, in this area here helps me to not only understand it more deeply myself, but helps me teach that we really don't have control. We really do not have the control. We have something, but we don't have the control that we thought we did. And it's just a good thing to consider that you're not really and the people that you're upset by, they don't have any control either. They're having difficulty with their emotions, their mind, the causes and conditions that have been coming at them for not only this lifetime, but apparent other lifetimes. I say apparent because we're not really sure what those are. It looks like they're other lifetimes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.